Cenk made a tweet. Social issues are really important and worth fighting over, but maybe the left wing and right wing should consider uniting on economic issues against corporate rule. We agree a lot more than people realize on those issues. Then we can go back to kicking each other's ass. People on the left need to stop assuming that our side would immediately get duped by the right wing into voting for some racist fascist. Sure, be extremely cautious, but what if we tricked them into voting to raise their own wages, or giving themselves free health care? I don't want anyone thinking I'm telling people to vote Republican. Their politicians are the worst people on earth. And you don't hold hands with extremist groups, you obviously fight them. But what if there are right-wing voters who also hate corporate rule and corruption? Now, he got ratioed for this, but to be fair, every Cenk tweet gets ratioed, largely because every group this might appeal to either hates him or hates the caveats he included. Cenk has a largely left-liberal audience who is not going to be favorable to the idea of working with right-leaning people, and the people who are most in favor of this red-brown alliance bullshit are like Jimmy Dore fans, and Jimmy Dore fans hate Cenk more than anyone else in life. So, also, conservatives who might otherwise like this are put off by the fact that Cenk is explicitly stating that they don't want people voting for Republicans. So, this tweet was always designed to maximize the number of people who disliked it, okay? Cenk seems to have a habit for that, which is pretty impressive. Let's just talk about this. I've talked about this before. I'm gonna be expedient, but I need to be clear about this, okay? Yeah, it is a dumb tweet, okay? Work together towards solutions, not because you share problems. When people on the right and people on the left agree that a problem exists, they could have wildly different solutions to that problem. And the solution is ultimately what matters. Because agreeing on a problem means nothing if you have radically different approaches to how you want to address it. For example, Nazis and communists both have a problem with the elite. However, if you look a little bit beyond that very superficial agreement, you will find that the right-leaning people have a problem with it because they think the elite are all globalist Jews, and the communists have a problem because bourgeois, surplus labor, blah, blah. So the problem may be shared, the solutions differ. Now, the problem that I have with this fundamentally is that historically, people on the right who claim to want economic populism never do anything about it. Ever. Ever. They never do anything about it. How many times do I have to hear this from people? They're like, yeah, corporate media is rigged, the wealthy control everything, we need to do something about it. And then they vote for Trump. What? The multi-billionaire plutocrat who was friends with every single person accused of being in the deep state? The person who was at Clinton's wedding, butt buddies with Epstein? That's your anti-corporate, anti-capitalist, pro-economic populism position? The guy who cut the corporate tax rate, but then cut wealthy people's taxes, but then allowed middle-class taxes to rise back up again after he was done? What? And then why don't they support Bernie Sanders? Because he was woke. Well, I'll tell you this much. If Bernie Sanders being pro-BLM and pro-trans people is enough to make you abandon your pro-economic populist positions, then you don't actually believe in economic populism, okay? You don't. You cannot pretend you're some kind of fastidious hardliner on fighting for the working class when somebody like Bernie fucking Sanders shows up and you have an issue with him because he's socially progressive. If that's the case, then you're clearly going to look for any excuse you can to ignore any economically populist candidate you can find, except for ones who are already on the right. You're not working together towards these solutions. The right has a history of faking pro-economic populist positions in order to bait people who are disaffected and otherwise entranced by socialist ideas onto the right. The Nazis did this in the 1920s and 30s very effectively. Early plans for policy from the Nazi Party listed out a bunch of pro-worker reforms that they never ever did after they came to power. Mussolini did this as well. Tucker Carlson does this all the time. Tucker Carlson pretends to be some kind of pro-working class, anti-elite. Not only is Tucker Carlson the definition of silver spoon wealth, an heir to a frozen food fortune, Bowtie McGee, the guy who probably that little show he does where he's in the wood shop and He's got his flannel shirt. That's probably like a designer flannel shirt that costs $900, okay? This guy has never shook hands with a poor person. This guy puts on gloves, okay, before he enters like a grocery store, all right? This is not a person who gives a fuck about the working class. And he said so before. He said he'll do anything his billionaire masters tell him to do. He has acknowledged this. But he pretends to be pro-working class. You know why? Because people on the right are desperate for economic progressive populism, and they don't know where to find it. So here's a solution. If you want to work together with people who are on the right towards economically progressive positions, stop saying we need to capitulate on progressivism to reach over to them. Point out to them that they're giving up economic progressivism because they're that opposed to woke corporation BLM advertisements or whatever. Hold your fucking ground. Have a fucking backbone. Stuff like healthcare reform, a higher minimum wage, these are overwhelmingly popular positions in this country. And the only reason conservatives don't vote left so they can get those things is because they are the subject of an ongoing fear-mongering campaign from their beneficiaries who lie to them and say that actually the right is the group that is going to push for these economic reforms. But they're not. They never will. Remember those people who said that the Republicans were going to flank Democrats from the left? How did that work out? What did Trump do that flanked Democrats from the left? Nothing. Zero things. They'll posture at it, they'll talk about it, but they won't ever do it because they are ultimately, completely, and absolutely dedicated in their worship to the ruling class. Yeah, Jimmy Dore does keep saying it. Jimmy Dore, the guy who Sam Cedar pointed out that Trump winning means he could appoint a bunch of Supreme Court judges, and Jimmy Dore laughed him out, saying there's no way that would happen. Yeah, Jimmy Dore, great political analyst. If you want economic populism, you gotta vote left, baby. If you want to, if you're like a far right dude and you want to work with me towards healthcare, great. You can work with me on that by voting for socialist candidates. That can be how we work together. What the fuck do you want me to move over on? You think we're going to get better healthcare by convincing me to vote for right-leaning candidates? How exactly do you think that's going to happen? I know the Democrats aren't exactly, you know, firm advocates for progressive economic reform, but they're better than the Republicans are. And within the Democratic Party, there are people who actually do seem to care about economic reform, like the Justice Dems. Vote for them. If you're a right-leaning person who doesn't like BLM, but you want economic populism, sorry, buddy, you're gonna have to choose, because the right is never gonna give you economic populism. So you need to ask yourself, do you hate wokeism so much that you would condemn you and your children and your children's children to an eternal life of debt slavery? Is that how much you dislike wokeism? Is that really the line you're drawing this on? And if the answer is yes, then you don't care about economic populism. Simple as that. If that's if that's the line you're going to draw, then you don't care. Then why would I waste any time moving over to you if your principles are that flimsy? Seriously. So no, right-wing populism is bullshit because they never act on it. It's just a way to get disaffected people over to the right and then get them to agree with all the pre-existing right-leaning conclusions, which is why all these right populists end up voting in line with all the same fucking neocon-adjacent economic principles the moment they get the opportunity to. Seriously, seriously, look at the difference between the populist rhetoric used by the new Trump era of candidates and then look at what they vote on. They don't vote on raising taxes. They don't push for anything along those lines. They vote for the exact same economic austerity, pro-corporate positions that Republicans and Democrats, to be fair, have been voting on for ages. So it's completely phony. At least I can trust people like Bernie Sanders to push at nothing else for the concept of a better life for working class people, okay? At least, I mean, I know he can't single-handedly make Medicare for all happen, but at least, I mean, he talks about it, he pushes for it, he normalizes it in discourse. Were it not for Bernie Sanders, Medicare for all wouldn't even be like a national talking point, but he pushed for it, and now hundreds of millions of people at least know basically what it is. That's good. Are people on the right doing that? No. No, actually, they're not. At all. But I have to hear about this right populist bullshit all the time. You gave a fuck, you would move over to me. You can detrain yourself on whatever abhorrent positions you have. I actually saw people, I tweeted about this, and somebody tweeted like, I'll join you on the left. Stop calling me a racist. Stop being a racist, dude. What do you want from me? I don't know. You think you're right? What is that really? I like the inherent petulance of that tweet that I just randomly remember getting at some point, by the way, because it suggests that they are so uncommitted to economic populism that being called a racist will make them drop that position. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'm super in favor of economic populism, bro. But like, if you hurt my feelings, I'll vote for candidates that'll destroy the working class. You know, here we go. To be fair, they got ratioed into oblivion. I'm not pretending this is representative of everyone who disagrees with me, but man, it is indicative a little bit, you know? Like, just a little, you know, it's like, okay, sure, whatever. Yes, in the eternal words of Cody Johnston, the left got a little too PC, so I changed all my opinions about the economy, social issues, systemic racism, healthcare, and history. Yep. True, and forevermore.